Thank you for joining us today for this Educational Guardian webinar. Just a couple of things I want to highlight really quickly. We are going to be answering questions in the middle of the session, and then we'll save some time at the end for your questions. But feel free to type your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll try to get to some of those even during the presentation if we can. So our presenter today from the Care Provider Management Bureau in the Department of Social Services is Outreach Analyst Kim Griffith. Kim has been in state service for 2.5 years and loves it. Previously, she worked in the high-tech industry and was a business owner of a design firm for over 10 years. Also with us from the Bureau today to help answer your questions are Pallavi Shimoda, Section Chief, Wendy Scott, Staff Services Manager, and Yasaida Medrano, Associate Governmental Program Analyst. So welcome everyone, and now I'm going to turn it over to Kim.
All right, well, good morning. Hello and welcome. I'm so excited to be here with you today. I have a lot of great information to share with you, so I hope you're ready to take notes. A PDF of the PowerPoint will be posted on the CALA website after our time together. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. We are the Care Provider Management Bureau, part of the Department of Social Services Community Care Licensing Division. And we perform background checks. And we used to be the Caregiver Background Check Bureau, or the CBCB, until January of 2021. We launched a new background check system on January 15th. 2021, and that new system is called Guardian. So today's agenda was built around a list of questions that CALA gathered from many of you. So I think you'll find our time together valuable. Our agenda is to go do a quick overview of the background check process. We have a Guardian update for you. We're going to go over the proper order of an application and live scan form, and preventing duplicate IDs. And then we'll end with sharing some resources with you. And yeah, we will have a time for questions 2/3 of the way through and at the end. And now we'll go ahead and start with the quick overview. And that'll just help provide context for a lot of the items we'll be going over. So who needs to be fingerprinted? Licensed applicants, non-client adults, adult employees, adult volunteers, trust line, adults providing care and supervision, home care aides, and home care employees. So basically, a lot of people need to be fingerprinted. And here is the fingerprint journey toward CPMB. It goes through the California Department of Justice, or the DOJ, for in-state arrest and conviction information. And then it goes through the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or the FBI, for out-of-state and conviction information. And if your applicant is working with children, and they get the Child Abuse Central Index, which is a name-based repository of child abuse investigation reports, and it goes through that check as well. So there's also another check. It's a CPMB background checks go through an ARS, or Administrative Action Record System check. And defined, an administrative action is a negative action, which results in the exclusion of an individual to work, reside, or be present in a community care licensed agency. And where are these originated? They can come from an exemption denial, from negative investigation results, from information share with sister agencies, and from a regional office for conduct inimical. So here is a diagram to bring it all together. The fingerprint results arrive at CPMB Guardian system. Guardian does an ARS check, and they are either cleared, which means they have no record with the DOJ or FBI. They're okay to work, reside, or be present in the agency, and they will get a clearance letter, or will show up as eligible clearance on the roster in Guardian. The next box over is error batch. Error batch is a term we use that encompasses fingerprint results that arrive to us with wrong information. And often a mistake was put on a live scan form, or the fingerprint operator made an error or read the handwritten form wrong. And it's usually an incorrect agency number. Now, these fingerprint results get stuck until we know the right place they need to go. They will show up as a pending until someone actually follows up on it. So then we get to our last box, and that is the RAP received. Now, RAP stands for Record of Arrests and Prosecutions. And once a RAP is received, it can turn into several different types of cases, including an exemption case. And for the sake of time, I won't get into all of those with you today. But there were a couple questions that came in that CALIC collected, and I wanted to address a couple of them really quick right here while I have this diagram on. One question is, why do agencies sometimes receive two background clearance forms, one from the DOJ and the other from CDSS, sometimes weeks apart? And I'm just going to show you. So the DOJ is up here and they do a clearance, and then they send a letter when they send the results to us. And then it goes through the R's check, it comes down and gets cleared. The letter is made, sent out, and we use a mail stop, so it takes a little longer. So that is the time difference of those two letters. Another question was, why would there be a delay of 1 to 2 days to see an application in the system? And that is because we don't create an application for a person until their fingerprints hit us from the DOJ. So it's with the DOJ before the application is made. So hope those questions are answered for you. Here is a tip. If you receive a clearance letter from the DOJ, confirm that the OCA number is your facility or agency number. If it's not, or it says provider unknown, it's an error batch situation, and you want to contact us right away, and then we can get it fixed for you. And it's a real early in the game way to catch something like that. So the system we use to manage background checks is Guardian. And while the change to Guardian has been a challenging endeavor, the benefits promise to be long lasting. The real-time aspect keeps everyone informed. The ability to upload documents instead of relying on the mail and to receive notifications via email is now a reality. So like I mentioned though, bringing Guardian on has created a lot of change, both in our Bureau and for many agencies in our state. And it hasn't been easy for anyone. We completely understand the frustrations. Turnaround times have gotten longer, but something that you may not know about Guardian is that it's actually doing more than its predecessor, the CBC system, and for a greater number of applicants. I'm bringing back this slide to illustrate areas that have changed since the arrival of Guardian. One is our Bureau is now compliant. All clearances are true clearances. Before, with the old system, they were cleared by default if they were cleared by DOJ only, until we received additional information from FBI or CACI, which definitely happened. This new system is helping us provide more robust clearances for you that have passed 2 to 3 background checks plus the R's check. So it may be taking a bit longer to get a clearance, but it's a true clearance. Now, presently, there is an issue with matching criteria in the R's check feature, and it's slowing down turnaround times a bit. It is currently being worked on and getting close to being resolved. Right now, the R's check is a little too open, and it's putting too many names in the possible match queue, which has been creating a time-consuming bottleneck. And when this issue is resolved, it will speed clearances significantly. We have identified other areas in Guardian that are creating similar holdups. These fixes are prioritized They're identified and will be worked on. The Guardian system will get better and better eventually. Another area greatly enhanced by Guardian right now is when Guardian is used by agencies to provide applicants with their Guardian generated LiveScan form, the possibility of an error batch is practically eliminated. So CPMB is experiencing a Guardian backlog. Contributing factors are system implementation challenges, change in how cases are processed. They used to be case-based and now they're task-based. And that had created some bottlenecks, which we're working on. Learning curve with stakeholders and internal staff within CPMB. CPMB is experiencing a staffing shortage, which is getting better. We've got lots of new people coming in. There's lack of available funding to continue with enhancements or further development of Guardian at this time. One of the questions that came in was asking if we looking at ways to streamline processes in Guardian. And that was kind of a, yes, we're looking at it, but right now we are limited and working under a restricted contract with our vendors. So we're moving along. So we do have solutions. CPMB is working to procure a new contract that will allow future development. We're working to fill vacancies, working to assess how we can create workarounds to address the backlogs until they can be fixed in the system. As an example, we have worked with the vendor to pull a list of all the cases that were in a particular state of processes when the implementation actually occurred. And we put a task force together to place focused effort on those cases. And that was so successful that we have pulled data and plan to take that same approach for other areas that we know cases are bottlenecking. And we have a lot of people committed to working on these solutions, and we all want to see Guardian work at its fullest potential. Customer service update. So in order to balance workloads, some changes to our customer support have changed. We had to change our phone hours to Monday through Friday, 8 to noon. And here's a wait times are average 35 to 40 minutes. And CPMB has all staff helping with the phones. Email responses are taking longer than desired. They're getting better. Overtime is being utilized to respond as quickly as possible. And we have recruited help from CCLD partners in this area and hope to see a change in response time soon. And someone sent in a question that's asked, is there a specific analyst or a direct point of contact that agencies can call or email for updates when they have questions for a pending clearance or exemption? And you're going to want to contact our customer service phone lines. And like I said, they are open 8 to 12 at 888-422-5669, and or use our customer service email at guardian@dss.ca.gov. So that is really the best way. So learning to use Guardian may take a few hours, but the results can save you months of frustration. And it's true, knowing how to use Guardian correctly will help you get applicants working in your agency more quickly by preventing them from getting stuck due to a mistake. Those can cost extra time wasted waiting for background check results, and we all want to get your employees on the floor. Now, I mentioned earlier that this presentation was created to answer the questions that Cala collected from you. And one question in particular caught my eye that I wanted to focus on. What are the top 3 issues in Guardian that, if done correctly, could prevent most calls or emails to CPMB? So this was an easy question for us to answer, as a few issues have really created the most problems. So if they're done correctly, it could change everything for all of us. So I've made sure that we go over these issues in some detail today. The number one issue by far is not following the proper order of the application and LiveScan form. That creates problems, and we're going to go over the proper order right now. I think you'll find it helpful. There are 3 ways or methods to create an application. You can do an applicant initiated in Guardian, agency initiated in Guardian, or non-Guardian initiated. I have a video to share with you that goes over all 3 of these. It's about 6 minutes long. And just so you know, there's a little payment information in there, and that only applies to Trustline and home care registries. So you don't have to worry about that part.
We are now going to discuss how applications are initiated. Applications may be initiated one of 3 ways. 1. The applicant applies for an agency through their Guardian portal and then submits fingerprints. 2. The agency associates an applicant to their roster through their Guardian portal. After having added the individual, Guardian will generate a LiveScan form for the applicant to go and fingerprint. Or 3. The applicant nor the agency utilize Guardian, and the applicant takes a LiveScan form and goes and gets fingerprinted. Let's take a closer look at option 1. In order to apply to an agency via Guardian, the applicant will need to obtain the agency's unique PIN. The PIN is provided solely by the agency, unless the applicant is applying to be an independent home care aide, in which CPMB can provide that PIN if requested by the applicant. The home care PIN is also available on the Home Care Services Bureau website. The PIN serves 2 purposes. 1. It associates the applicant to the agency. 2. It dictates who is paying applicable registry fees, whether that be the applicant or the agency. Licensing agencies do not require a payment. Once the applicant has successfully applied to an agency via their Guardian portal, the agency will receive notification of the pending application. The agency will then be required to resume and complete the application. Once the application is complete, Guardian will generate a LiveScan form with all the applicable information. The applicant will then take that LiveScan form and visit a LiveScan operator to have their prints taken. The CPMB will then receive the fingerprint results. Now, let's go over option 2. If an agency wants to start an application in Guardian on behalf of an applicant, they will first need access to Guardian. In order to gain access to Guardian, the licensee of the agency will need to submit a Licensee User Access Form, aka LUA, to Guardian Login Support at dss.ca.gov, if not done so already. Once the agency logs into their account, they can then search for an individual in Guardian to see if they already exist in the database. If they do, and the individual meets all criteria needed for an association, they can be transferred. If they are not in the database, the agency can then add in their application for their agency. If the agency is a home care organization or a Trustline agency that requires a registry fee, by applying on behalf of the applicant, the agency will be prompted to pay. The agency may choose to wait to submit various payments at once. This is known as a batch pay. The agency may also choose to not pay the fee by withdrawing the application. The applicant may then resume their application in Guardian and submit the payment. If an applicant was not found in the database, the agency will proceed with entering all the applicant's demographic information, their address, email address, etc. The agency will also be selecting the applicable position type for the applicant. If an agency has numerous agencies under their Guardian account, they will have to select which agency they want the applicant associated to. Once the agency submits the application, the applicant will receive an email notifying them they can log into Guardian and retrieve their LiveScan form. The applicant will then take that LiveScan form and visit a LiveScan operator to have their prints taken. CPMB will then receive the fingerprint results. Lastly is option 3. An applicant can still take a non-Guardian generated LiveScan form to submit fingerprints. It is important that if they submit fingerprints this way, all the information on the form is correct. Incorrect information could lead to error batches and may result in the applicant not being associated to the correct agency number. Incorrect agency numbers will display as unknown provider from DOJ in the state portal. This will delay the process of a clearance or an exemption. Once fingerprints have been submitted, the applicant will be able to connect to their fingerprints in Guardian using their background check number. If the applicant creates an application in Guardian after they submit fingerprints and they do not use their background check number to connect, this could result in a duplicate application or duplicate background check. Once fingerprints have been submitted, the applicant will receive a letter to the address entered by the LiveScan operator notifying them of their background check number and the next steps to complete their application. The agency will also receive an action required letter which states what the agency needs to do in order for the application to move forward. Once an application, fingerprints, and payment, if applicable, are received, then the background check process can begin. If the agency chooses to disassociate the individual after prints have been received, the applicant is eligible for the individual exemption process.
Okay, so the video went over these 3 methods to create an application and LiveScan form in the proper order. And what's really important here is to choose one method and then follow it through using the proper order or steps. And this will ensure that the applications and the fingerprint results match up in Guardian. And that'll promote a smooth background check processing experience. So conversely, when these methods are performed out of order or a mixture of these methods is used, that's when, and we see that all the time, and that's when problems arise. And this is so important that I really want to recap the information for you quickly, and so you have it in a visual form. So the first way to create an application is the applicant initiated in Guardian. Step 1 is the agency provides the applicant with an applicant instruction form, which contains agency's PIN. The number 2, the applicant enters their application information and submits. Number 3, the agency then retrieves the applicant's application under not yet submitted and can either resume it or withdraw it. Assuming they're going to resume, number 4 is agency resumes and submits the application and will receive a confirmation right then. And then number 5, the agency and applicant will get a pre-populated LiveScan form to use, and that'll happen immediately as well. And we have step-by-step instructions on our agency user guide starting on page 48 that can take you through this whole process. So the second way to create an application is the agency initiated in Guardian. And step one is a thorough person search. And it's best to ask for the applicant's per ID, which is a personal identifier. It's a 10-digit number that we create if they've ever been fingerprinted for CCLD. So if the person is found in Guardian, you want to follow the connections in the agency user guide on page 80. And then it goes to step 2. If the applicant is not found in Guardian, add the new applicant. And you will need some information for this. You want to have the applicant's email address, date of birth, identification information like an ID, social security number, and their physical and mailing address. And you want the completed LIC 508s. Step 4 is to submit the application. And step 5 is a pre-populated live scan form will generate. And these have deadlines for the prints to be submitted to. And we have the agency user guide, page 18, for step-by-step instructions on that method. And then lastly, we have the non-Guardian initiated. And number 1, you fill out the live scan form. I would add neatly and correctly. Number 2, applicant goes and prints. Number 3, the applicant and the agency will get a letter from CPMB, and it's important to wait for that letter. Number 4 is the applicant and agency follow the instructions in the letter on how to proceed. So that concludes the segment on the proper order of applications and live scan forms, which once again is the number 1 issue that can really make a difference if done in the proper order. If you have any questions on what we've gone over so far, you can put it in the Q&A box, and I think there are some questions in there already. I will go ahead, and I got a question earlier, and it was, why do agencies sometimes receive background check clearance forms in the mail while in Guardian they're still pending? And that might be an instance where the applicant has a duplicate ID or multiple applications submitted. And one of those can be tied to the clearance, and that's why they get the clearance letter. And one cannot be tied to the fingerprints and can still be pending. So that's one question and answer.
Also, we had some questions about the presentation. It will be available on the CALA website. It's also going to be added to the chat towards the end of this presentation, and it will be available. So don't worry about that. So a question about the Guardian website specifically, some comments about how it takes a long time for things to populate on the website, to go from screen to screen on the roster. Is there, I don't know if it would be a technology issue on maybe the agency's end, or if it's on the Guardian website itself that's slowing things down. Is there something that they can do to help with that?
Yeah, thank you for the question. We appreciate the feedback. It really is helpful for us to know where the bottlenecks are. We have been experiencing in the past some significant slowdowns, specifically when you're accessing what we call the applications tab. We've noticed that that's a slowdown not only for you all, but also for our own internal staff, and that's not helping our backlogs. So we have been working very hard with our vendor to increase the speed for the response times as you click through the screens. And it has gotten better. We have seen an improvement. Obviously, there is still some delay and some slowdown. So we are continuing to work on that, but we hope that you've seen some improvement as we have tried to address that as best as we can.
And then a question about the timing for exemptions. Someone was asking about it taking such a long period of time, even when all the information is uploaded to the Guardian website.
Thank you. Yes, the exemption process is cumbersome. I will say that. Unfortunately, the packet that you all submit either for yourself or for an individual that you're employing is not all that's needed. We are statutorily required to obtain arrest records as well. And that involves coordination with law enforcement agencies. And as you know, with the hundreds or maybe thousands of law enforcement agencies in the state, they are also backlogged. They're dealing with staffing shortages as well. And they have different response times and their records might be antiquated. So unfortunately, we are at the mercy of their response time. So even if you submitted your packet very timely, sometimes it takes months for us to get a response from a law enforcement agency. So we are beholden to that time frame as well. And then once we get that response from the law enforcement agency, then things should move a lot quicker. And our staff makes a determination based on the information you all submitted and the information that we gathered from the law enforcement agency. So we apologize for the delay. That is something that we're actually taking a very holistic view of and working with our partners to see if there is something more we can do to expedite the process. But at this point, it is lengthy and a little bit cumbersome. So apologies.
A lot of redundancies in the system and just working together.
Exactly.
So can you just really quickly, maybe Pallavi, talk about how you deal with someone who's already in the Guardian system and how that process works?
Absolutely, yeah. So if we have somebody who has maybe worked for a adult residential facility and now they want to come and work for your RCFE, they may already have a clearance or an exemption in our system, and in which case they would not need to submit new fingerprints, which is great. But we would want to make sure that the fingerprints are still active. The way our relationship with DOJ works is we get what we call wrap back service or continual notification, so that should someone get arrested even after they've received a clearance or an exemption from us at CDSS, we would want to be notified of that subsequent criminal information. So we get that ongoing notification from DOJ, and that helps us determine the health and safety of the individual and the clients in care. So if their fingerprints are still active, you can either submit a transfer request. There's a form online. It's called the LIC 9188 or LIC 9182. There's two different forms, one for if somebody has a clearance and another for if the individual has an exemption. So there's two different forms. But once you submit that transfer form, either to your regional office or to us, we can process the transfer without needing additional fingerprints. If you are a Guardian user, it's even easier. You don't need to submit that form to us. You can go in and access your Guardian account and search for the individual. And it does look for personally identifying information to see if that person is in Guardian. So you would need to walk through the application process to see if they are in Guardian and if fingerprints are needed or not. But if no fingerprints are needed, the system will tell you that. It says, great, this person doesn't need to fingerprint, and they can be associated to your roster right then and there without any further delay.
That's great. So I think that's all the time we have for questions now, and then we'll get to more of your questions at the end of the presentation.
Okay, well, that was helpful. Thank you, Pallavi. All right, so the second issue in Guardian that, if done correctly, could prevent most calls or emails to CPMB is the issue of duplicate IDs. You may have heard of them. So I'm going to spend a little time kind of just giving you some tips on how to prevent the situation of duplicate IDs. There's things that the agency can do, so y'all can do, and there's things that you can warn the applicant about. So I just have a couple things to highlight. Number one is when performing a person search for an applicant, you want to perform the search like 3 times using different identifiers, such as California driver's license, the social security number, their per ID, that 10-digit number I mentioned earlier. And you want to refresh the system screen in between those searches. It really helps. It's helped me when I'm working in the system. And especially when you're dealing with someone who's been in the industry for a while or says they've been fingerprinted for us. So you really want to put that extra effort forth in searching. And number 2 is almost the same as number 1, is make sure the applicant is not in the system before using the Add New feature on the Applications tab or the green Add New Applicant button, as this could create a duplicate ID if they're already in there, and that would slow things down for a background check. The things that you can advise the applicant if they're going to be doing their own is, if an applicant is creating an account in Guardian and has fingerprinted for community care licensing facility in the past, you, regardless of how long ago, you encourage them to include a background check number or a social security number when they're registering for an account. The other thing is, if the applicant logs into their portal and they don't see their previous applications or activity, that's a red flag, and they're going to want to contact Guardian Login Support at dss.ca.gov to get that straightened out. There was a question sent in, how would an individual change their name so it can be updated in Guardian? And I'll just mention the applicant needs to send proof of their correct name for it to be changed. And the proof could be driver's license, a marriage certificate, name change document from the DMV, and they can upload that document to their profile and reach out to our customer service team to request it, either by phone or email. And please be sure to provide their per ID or some other identifying information so we can find them in the Guardian system. And that's how you change a name, you know, go from a married name to, or maiden name to a married name or something like that. Lastly, the third issue in Guardian that, if done correctly, could prevent most calls or emails is knowing where to find and how to use the resources that we have for you. Here, I will go over what resources you have available. We have a brand new Guardian Agency User Guide. We're on version 2 now. We have a frequently asked questions document that's helpful. And all of this is on the Guardian webpage. I also have some of our contact and emails to share with you. So I'm going to go ahead and take you on a tour of the Guardian website. And I highly recommend that you bookmark it and make sure this information is part of your toolkit for Guardian, because it really does have a lot of helpful information. Give it a second. There it is. Okay, so here's our Guardian webpage. I'm going to scroll down. It has some information about what Guardian is. The real information that's helpful, we have these expandable blue boxes. We have one for applicants that you can share with people applying for a job. We have this Guardian for agencies. You press this little plus button and it opens up, and here's your agency portal, your version 2 user guide. We have videos of different steps of the way. Throughout, we have connections. Here's applicant agency initiated applications. Just a lot of different things. And close that. Down here, we have Guardian Access and the LUA forms, which I'm going to come back to that in just a moment. We have contact information up here. And this question mark is a frequently asked question. It's a link. So you have 3 more of these expandable boxes. Questions for applicants, questions for agencies, and we have the Care Provider Management Bureau frequently asked questions. There's a lot of information in there as well that's not Guardian related, but background check related. So if you have a question about a fingerprint or just what's an OCA number, that's all in there. So I just went back to this and I had 3 questions come in that Cala collected that the answer was to submit a licensee user account form or the LUA form. You probably have heard it a couple times today already. One question was an auto-generated email to the agency alerting them that their applicant has cleared would save time. Is there an option for this? And yes, there is. Signing up for Guardian and opting into notifications, you will get emails when determinations have been made, including clearances. And that's by filling it out, the LUA form. Also, how does an agency update their Guardian account when their email changes due to new ownership? Once again, a new LUA will need to be submitted. And as you send it into the email address, that's right here, Guardian Login Support, you want to share some information of maybe the emails that have been disabled. And once you have access, you can create accounts for any other staff. And that's all in the user guide. The last question about the LUA form is, what is the best way to create a new account for a new building? And we need to begin associating staff prior to opening. And you can complete a LUA form before your agency is open, and you can start associating new employees to your roster. So you should be able to get your facility number from your regional office. So, and all that information or the forms you need and the email it goes to is all right here on our website. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. Next, we have our address, main phone number, our main fax. That's a handy form that is right in the thick of things. So your fax will be received at that number. And here are a couple email addresses for you, the Guardian at dss.ca.gov, which has a list of questions you might send in. The Guardian Login Support at dss.gov also has some particular reasons that you might want to send into that email address. So I have that here. And I have included a terminology chart for you that I hope you find handy. And lastly is we have some troubleshooting. There were troubleshooting questions that came in. And let me see if we have time to go over everything. Yeah, we do. So if you're kicked out of Guardian after separating about 10 individuals from the roster, I guess that was happening with someone, we do suggest that you refresh the page and start again. And we are aware of the issue, and it's being worked on. We're aware of that. The next one is if the determination in process link is still timing out after spinning, and I think someone mentioned the slow time, please send a screenshot and your agency number to the Guardian Login Support, because this issue was recently resolved and it shouldn't be an issue now. So, and that's straight from the Guardian team just the other day. So the next one is if your password is no longer valid, you want to create a new password per the instructions on the screen or refer to the user guide starting on page 106, or email Guardian Login Support at dss.ca.gov. And the next issue is the long loading time of the website is an issue that is being worked on and has been improved just recently. And I was surprised to see that was in our chat. So I will definitely bring it to the Guardian team. When associating an individual to an agency in the drop-down section that lists employees as blank, try clicking one extra time. This issue has recently been resolved as well. And if the problem persists, please send a screenshot and your agency number to that Guardian Login Support email. And lastly, when creating an application for someone and the error message appears when submitting, please reach out to Guardian Login Support with screenshots, as this issue was recently resolved as well. So that is that for the troubleshooting questions that came in. And if you have any other questions, you can put them in the Q&A box. And we'll go ahead and spend a little time here.
Thanks, Kim.
You're
I
welcome.
think one thing that I really got from that just now is if you are having some of these troubleshooting problems, that you should screenshot it and send it to Guardian so they can see specifically what your issue is.
Yes, it really helps us to know what's going on out there.
Yeah, I agree, because, you know, when you type it, it's one thing, but to actually see it, it's really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have a number of questions. Let's see. So there are multiple questions about the time that it's taking to get clearances back. And, you know, feel free to jump in, Kim, Pallavi. I think that obviously it's frustrating, and we understand that staff are a priority, and Guardian is an automated system. So things are happening automatically. It isn't necessarily a slowdown from the Guardian standpoint. It seems that it's just the time that it's taking to get these back for whatever reason. It is what it is. I don't know if there's anything potentially, making sure that as you're uploading a new applicant and you're doing those things, that you're following the steps that were outlined today, so that there are no error batch situations or things that are out in your control to keep the timing down. But I don't know if there's any other guidance that you have for this length of time issue that we're seeing.
Yes, well, the clearances I mentioned in the diagram slide, and there was how there was the little section where we talked about the clearances need to go through the R's check before they are truly cleared. And there is a holdup in the R's check that too many names are getting put in there. Names that maybe aren't quite a match, but they're being identified as a match. And those need to be manually gone through and cleared before they go to the cleared bucket and the letter gets sent out. So that is an area of bottleneck that we're working on.
Okay.
So.
And in that case, they might receive the DOJ clearance letter before they get the Guardian, right? Okay. Which, if I remember the statute correctly, when they have the DOJ clearance, someone can begin working, and, they're waiting for the others. If something did come up, they would have to remove that individual potentially. But once they have that DOJ clearance, they could begin working, if I remember correctly.
Well, I'm not sure if that's the case.
The issue is that we do need to complete that administrative action check before they do start working, Selena. So that is something that we're asking everyone to wait for the clearance letter for Guardian before they begin working.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's hopefully, as COVID subsides and people are able to get into work, that should, hopefully that helps with all of that.
Absolutely.
There were also some questions about what I think is a transfer issue. If someone's been in the fingerprinted 6 months ago and they were in the system, how would that be handled? Again, if someone's in the system, it's a transfer situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Most likely, Selena, yeah, they would be a transfer. I don't want to say definitively, because there are times we've had someone print and get associated to a facility, and then they don't pursue their exemption. So we actually close out their case. And in that case, then when we close their case, then we send the notification to DOJ to say, hey, we don't need any more information on this individual. So in that case, their fingerprints do go inactive. 6 months, likely we probably would want to take a look at the case just to verify. But if they were truly associated to that facility and they were working there, then I can confidently say that they most likely are able to transfer.
Okay. And then also someone is asking if they did a transfer request, but they didn't get any response from CDSS, what would be the solution there?
Yeah, I would follow up. It depends on if you sent it to your regional office or if you sent it directly to us at the Care Provider Management Bureau. I can't really speak to the regional offices if they're backlogged or not, but they should be responding to you fairly quickly. And if it's somebody who had a clearance, if you know for certain that they didn't have any criminal history and they had previously received a clearance from us, then they can start to work. Even when you submit that transfer paperwork, the cleared individuals can work immediately. It's those that have exemptions that cannot work until we grant that association.
Okay, so they're cleared, they can start, they don't have to wait to hear back.
Yeah, as long as they submit the paperwork and everything's there, they can start working.
Okay. And there's also a question about if there is a way to view whether additional documentation is needed for someone to be cleared.
Great question. I wish it was a simple answer. Unfortunately, it's hard for us to say definitively what would be needed. However, if you know that somebody has a criminal background, if they've disclosed to you that they have had, a DUI maybe 10, 15 years ago, something like that, then it would be wise for you to start kind of gathering information, ask them to recall the facts of the arrest and start jotting it down so that when we say that an exemption is needed, and we sent that letter out, then they're on top of the game. They're ready. They've got their documentation collected so that they can more quickly get that response back to us stating, yes, we want to pursue an exemption. And the quicker we get that, the quicker we can request their arrest records from the law enforcement agency. So there's not an easy way in Guardian for us to tell you what will be needed until we review the rap sheet. And when we review the rap sheet, that's the time that we're sending out the letter. Either, hey, this isn't a big deal, we can clear you right away, or no, there's information on here we need to look into further, so an exemption would be needed.
Okay, that makes sense. What about those individuals that just show in process for weeks at a time? Is there anything that can be done to show what might be needed in those cases?
That is something that we really want to work towards. It's a sticking point for all of us. Believe me, that in process doesn't really give you any further information. So that's one of our wish list items to further explain what in process means. However, if you see someone as in process for several weeks and you're not receiving any kind of communication from us, then please do reach out. What we're saying is that within 30 days of us receiving the fingerprint responses, we should have either sent a clearance letter or an exemption needed letter. So if you're seeing that timeline just extend and you're not getting anything from the Care Provider Management Bureau, please do reach out, because that means something's not working correctly. That could be bottlenecked somewhere.
Yeah. And then there was a question just to follow up on transfers or exemptions. When someone needs an exemption, they have to, let's see, I think it says, so in the past, you could have someone working while waiting for the exemption as long as they submitted their documents. Is that still okay?
It depends on their information. It's a little nuanced, but if they've received an exemption previously and they've recently been subsequently, or they've recently been arrested for an additional crime, and that crime is not violent and it's not a felony, then they may be able to continue working at the facility. It's a little hard to get into the details without looking at specific cases. But if it's somebody who had a clearance previously and they're looking to transfer to a new facility, then yes, they can work immediately. It's those that have criminal information that we want to be doubly sure that they're not going to be a risk to the health and safety of our clients in care.
How many people can be on Guardian from the company and have access if a clearance comes through?
So I think what this is asking is how many people can have access to Guardian, the user account of Guardian, to review the roster and look at the individuals or create applications. And there's no limit. That is something that you and your company can work together. Once you've submitted the paperwork and you have an administrator, that administrator can create infinite number of user accounts for your staff. So really something that has no boundary there for you.
Okay. And if someone is in Guardian and they receive the electronic Guardian clearance, they don't need to wait for the clearance in the mail, right? That's
correct.
That's what it's there for.
Exactly. We are in this silly situation where we're not located at headquarters. So our mail kind of does get delayed. So that's one of the reasons we implemented Guardian and this electronic system is we really wanted to encourage people to use the electronic system, upload documents directly in Guardian, sign up for the electronic notification so that you don't have to wait for the US mail, because that can take an extra 2 to 3 days on top of the regular mailing time because we're not located at our headquarters in downtown Sacramento.
That's great. So it looks like that might be all the questions now, but one that came up for me when Kim was going through her presentation, there was the question about whether or not you would have a specific person that you could email or call if you have a clearance question. And I know that Kim said to start with that general DSS Guardian email or the helpline, but I was curious if at some point that case would be assigned to a specific analyst and the agency would then have a contact person that they could talk to.
At this point, Selena, we don't have a specific analyst. When we implemented Guardian, we restructured the way that we process our cases. We used to have an analyst dedicated to the case from start to finish. And now with Guardian, we've kind of broken it up by each task that's required in the case process. So we are taking a second look at that to see if there is a better way for us to process our cases. So it may be that you don't necessarily have a single analyst that you can contact, but you may have a group of people that you can reach out to so that not just one person is responsible to return your phone call. It could be 3 or 4 so that you're always able to get the information that you need. But that is a future plan for us. So stay tuned for more information.
I can see how it would be nice to have a specific person, but also the fact that it helps to have anyone who's available to answer your question to be helpful.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's a question about someone who tried to grant Guardian or access to Guardian more than one person and it wouldn't allow them. And this might be a case where they need to provide a screenshot, but I'm just curious if you've heard of that.
I haven't heard of it. It could be just the way that the account was set up might need to be tweaked or, very specific situation. So encourage you to reach out to our Guardian login support team to get that information.
And another question about DUI. Someone had a DUI with no injuries and they're waiting for an exemption. Can they work while waiting for an exemption approval?
So if this is an individual who is brand new to your facility, if they've never worked, regardless of their criminal history, they cannot work until we either get that clearance or an exemption granted. So new people cannot work until you have that information. However, if it's somebody who's already been employed and we've already identified that an exemption is needed, and we tell you that that person can continue to work while we look into that conviction or that crime, then of course they can work because our letter states that they are able to continue to work. But in this case, I'm not clear on if it's somebody who is brand new or is already working. So it would depend on the situation.
Okay. And we do know that there are the simplified exemptions for some of those DUIs, but again, it's not an automatic process. There's still a little bit of work that has to go into that, right?
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, we're getting close to our time. So I just want to, again, let everyone know that this was recorded. We'll make it available on our website along with the slides that were presented today. We're really excited and we thank our panelists for being with us and providing their time and expertise to all of you, and appreciate that you are partnering with us as we all navigate this system together.
Yes, thank you so much for your time and attention today. And I hope you find it to be time well spent. And on that note, we do have a really quick survey for you that will be put in the chat box. Please fill it out. It really helps us to know if we're hitting the mark for you or if we could be more helpful because we're here for you. And thanks again and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.